Hey, back at you with another video here for the NBA main slate here on Monday. We only got a 2-game slate, so I'm going to try to get through this video really quick. If you watched my video yesterday, you guys probably cashed. I talked about just stacking up OKC, Portland. The three guys I really liked were Lillard, Westbrook, and Cantor. All three of those guys did very well, especially Cantor for his price. So you played him. I think you definitely cashed. So overall, again, another pretty good night. So let's just dive right into this 2-game slate. We only got about 2 hours until lock, so I'm going to try to get this video out there as soon as possible. So, again, 2 games. Both these games are going to be fast-paced, so, there is blowout risk in both, a little more in the Golden State game for sure. So I think probably is maybe a little safer to target Brooklyn and Philly. But I think, again, the Clippers and Golden State has maybe a little more upside. So we'll start with Steph here at 8.8. Obviously, he had that huge game. I talked about him. I really liked him. He's just too cheap there at 8.3. Now, bumped up a little bit to 8.8. Still, I don't think it's enough. However, obviously he had the huge game. I think he's going to be really popular tonight. If I get word that he's going to be like super, super chalky, then that's when I might pivot to Durant just because of ownership purposes, but have absolutely no issue with Steph. The D'Angelo Russell 8.4, was a little bit of a letdown. Shot the ball really bad, 10 of 25. In the minutes, I really thought he would see some more minutes, especially in the playoffs. Only 29 minutes, though, in a close game. I really thought he'd be extended to 35 or so. Now, the Nets, though, they're always kind of wacky with the rotation. So, I definitely could see D'Angelo Russell playing 35 minutes tonight. I think he has some pretty big upside. I know Philly, pretty solid defensive team, especially against point guards. But he's the main catalyst in the offense. He has 50, 60 fantasy point upside if his shot's falling. So, I think D'Angelo Russell really fine here at 8.4, and I think he's going to go pretty low owned. I think a lot of people are going to go with Dinwiddie, Steph Curry. I think D'Angelo Russell goes pretty low owned, but this guy has huge upside. Then Ben Simmons, another play that I think is going to go super low owned just because of recency bias. He let a lot of people down. Obviously, Embiid playing does hurt him a bit. Embiid status up in the air. I do expect him to play, but we're going to wait for news. 7.3K is just way too cheap. I know, recently, the past 4 games, he hasn't really looked that good, but, man, this guy, he's got 50, 60 fantasy point upside in him, especially in this matchup. 7.3, I like to buy low. I'm leaning towards playing Ben Simmons right now. And again, I think he might go a little lower owned just because he hasn't looked good recently. And then Lou Williams, I've really liked him in my, when they played Golden State in Game 1. Still like him a lot here in Game 2. 6.8K. The price only went up 600. Again, it's the playoffs. He's going to get 30-plus minutes. He's the main catalyst in this Clippers offense. If they're going to keep this game close, Lou's going to have a big game. He did. I think he got pulled. All the starters got pulled with like 2 or 3 minutes left. So he was on pace for about 35 or so minutes. I like Lou Williams a lot here at 6.8K. I still think that price is way too cheap. Then SGA, I think is definitely in play here. Now this is, it was interesting to see kind of the rotation, but they put him on Steph Curry. They put Beverly on Durant. So it looks like, Doc Rivers is comfortable running that 3-guard lineup out there. So SGA, they seem comfortable giving him some good minutes. If he's going to play, 30, 35 minutes a night at 5.5K, I think he's fine. Again, I would much rather play Lou Williams for extra 1,300 to see his immense upside, but I think SGA is perfectly fine at 5.5. And Dinwiddie, I think, is going to be pretty popular, but for pretty good reason. He played 32 minutes last game against Philly. I would say he plays right around 30 minutes. He's kind of the number 2 in the offense behind D'Angelo Russell. 5K, he hasn't really flashed the upside of late, but I think the price is pretty fair. The minutes seem pretty secure. So again, I think Dinwiddie is going to be pretty popular, but I think he's a solid play there. And then Pat Beverly. I said he was in play because of his defense. They're going to need his defense in the series. They threw him on Durant, which I thought was pretty interesting. Played 31 minutes. Got you like a Patrick Beverly stat line. 3 points, 7 assists, 7 boards, and a steal. Now, does he have huge upside? No. Again, I would much rather pay the extra couple thousand for Lou Williams, but I think he's okay for mid-range. And then below that, I really wouldn't target anyone else. So let's move on to shooting guard. Jimmy Butler, at 7.4. Obviously, he had that huge game last time out, even though the 76ers lost. Played 39 minutes, got you 54 fantasy points. Playoff Jimmy Butler, it's a thing for sure. Now, I think he's going to be really popular tonight. I think Jimmy's still a really good play. But again, I think it's going to be kind of like people are going to go to Jimmy and Steph just because of recency bias. Now, I'm not saying Jimmy and Steph are bad plays. They're really good plays. But right now, I'm thinking I'm probably going to fade both just because I think they're going to be super high owned, and I think other guys have just as much upside. Again, on a 2-game slate, you kind of got to differentiate yourself. So have absolutely no issue with Jimmy and Steph. Obviously, they both had huge games in game one. But I think the recency bias is going to affect the ownership. So I think I'm going to go off those guys for this 2-game slate. Klay Thompson, he's going to have a breakout game here in the playoffs. Probably won a couple games. But most of the time he's going to get you 25 to 35 fantasy points. So a mid-range, Klay Thompson, I don't have an issue, but I would just rather play some other guys in his price range. LeVert, I would like him. Sorry, mark that. Okay. I would like him if he was playing more minutes. He played pretty good. He was really aggressive out there against Philly. In 23 minutes, he shot the ball 18 times at 23 real-life points. I don't really understand why he didn't play more, but that's just the issue right now is the minutes. This guy's really productive. I would just like to see if he played closer to 30 minutes. JJ Redick, again, if you guys watch my videos for a while now, you guys know I don't like scoring-dependent guys. For that reason, his shot was not falling. He put up 5 fantasy points. Now, if his shot's falling, he can get you 40 fantasy points. But I just don't like playing scoring-dependent guys. So JJ Redick's just not a guy that I ever play in fantasy. Then Iguodala, I talked about him. Obviously, he's going to get a little minutes boost here in the playoffs. And there was a quote from Steve Kerr who said he really liked just running that, the normal big four and Iguodala together with no Boogie. So he said he was going to run that lineup a little bit more. Now, that concerns me with Boogie, but that's a boost for Iguodala here. Obviously, the price only went up 300. I'd assume he plays right around 25 minutes. The matchup's really good. There's not a whole lot of great value plays on the slate, so Iguodala, one of the few value guys that I would target for sure. Shamet, just don't think we had to go there. They're comfortable giving me those minutes to Lou Williams, so I don't think we had to go there. And then below that, there's nothing really of interest here. So let's move on to small forward. KD at 8K. So right now, I'm leaning towards playing KD just because, I think the ownership's going to be super high on Steph and super low on KD. Now, I still think Steph has more upside, but again, I'm playing the ownership aspect of it in this 2-game slate. I think I'm going to roll with KD just because I think he goes pretty low owned. I think he has some pretty big upside. 8K, that's way too cheap for KD. Gallinari, 6.6. He did okay. Put up 32 fantasy points last time out. It was Lou Williams that kind of took over, but Gallinari is going to have a pretty big game for the Clippers to keep it close. This is the big three, really. It's Lou, it's Gallinari, it's Montrez that are very appealing to me in this game. Probably Lou, then Lou 1, Montrez 2, Gallinari 3. So if you're going with the complete game stack, I would play Gallinari, but personally, I prefer Lou Williams and Montrez to Gallinari. But he does have upside. If his shot's falling, he has shown 40, 50 fantasy point upside at 6.6K. And then Tobias, so this is kind of interesting as well. Hasn't looked good. Kind of like Ben Simmons. Really, last few games has not looked good. The price has dropped though all the way to 6.2. Only shot the ball 7 times last time out. Obviously if Embiid's out, that's a huge boost to everyone. But personally, I really do think Embiid's going to play. I think this is a decent buy low on Tobias. If he's aggressive, this guy can get you a huge fantasy point outing. So I think Tobias certainly fine there, 6.2, and I think he's a pretty decent buy low there. Joe Harris, too scoring dependent for me to play. DeMarre Carroll, I think he played the most minutes out of any of the Nets. Played 34 minutes. Now, he's not the highest usage guy, but if he can knock down some threes, he can definitely get you there. So I don't mind him as a value play. Even JaMychal Green, I think is definitely in play here. So played 25 minutes here against Golden State. we've seen him when he was on Memphis. He can get you a lot of fantasy points in a short amount of time. Right now, I think JaMychal Green's probably my favorite value play. 3.8K. I think he has 25, 30 fantasy point upside. So him and Iguodala probably the top value plays, but I think JaMychal Green is probably my favorite value play on the slate. Let's see, power forward. We're going to talk about these guys. Draymond, really like him again here at 6.1. It's playoff Draymond. He's going to see some extra minutes. Again, Steve Kerr said he liked running that small ball. The Clippers like to run small ball with Montrez at the 5. Zubac wasn't really getting any minutes, so Golden State kind of wants to match it, and Boogie didn't look good, kind of fouled out. And again, Steve Kerr said he wants to run more of that small ball lineup. That's huge for Draymond. Really like him at 6.1K. Montrez, same thing. The Clippers want to run small ball. Played 30 minutes last time out. Played really good. 26 real life points. Didn't really do much else in the rebound assist. Got a couple blocks and steals, but if he's gonna continue to score like this, these peripheral stats are gonna go up too. I think he has huge upside. I really like pairing Draymond with Montrez together in the same lineup. Both these guys, I think, have 40, 50 fantasy point upside. Both teams run on small ball. Really like Draymond. Really like Montrezl Harrell. Kuruk's not seeing enough minutes. Don't think we have to go there. Bolden, let's just questionable. Only played 5 minutes. Only would consider him if Embiid's out. Center, let's move on to Embiid. I said, if he played, he was my favorite 76er. In only 24 minutes, he put up 56 fantasy points. He looks kind of hobbled out there, but I think he's going to continue to play through it. The minutes are the only concern for me. Only played 24 minutes. I would like if he played closer to 30 minutes, but obviously this guy has huge upside. Look what he did in 24 minutes. If he's going to play 9.8K, that seems too cheap. So, that's kind of my thoughts on Joel Embiid. I think he has huge upside. I would like if he played more minutes, but this guy can just crush value in limited minutes. And then the boogeyman, I think he's going to go pretty low owned. The only thing that worries me, again, he gets in foul trouble. He obviously fouled out in 21 minutes. Steve Kerr said he wanted to run more with that small ball lineup, but 7.1K, I think Boogie plays 25, 30 minutes. In that time, he can get you 50 fantasy points. So I still think he has some pretty big upside. The only concern is that Steve Kerr quote. Then Jarrett Allen here. Got into some foul trouble, played very limited minutes against Embiid. They ran with Ed Davis, who played a lot better. But this is the interesting news here. We got Ed Davis as well as Jared Dudley questionable. If both those guys miss, they ran some Jared Dudley at the 5 too. If both those guys miss, the Nets have no big. So I would assume Jared Allen plays some decent minutes. And then we would have to consider Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, who I think would get in the rotation. And whenever we can project RHJ to get minutes, he's a fantasy point per minute monster. So this is some pretty big news here for the Nets. Ed Davis. Let me get up Brooklyn here. Ed Davis, as well as Jared Dudley here. Both listed as questionable. So yeah, if both those guys miss, Jared Allen, I think, is going to have to play some decent minutes. I think Rondae Hollis-Jefferson's a really good value play if both those guys miss. Let's see. And then Boban here, played the backup 5, played 15 minutes. Whenever this guy gets minutes, he produces. Got 26 fantasy points when he's out there. Obviously, it would be a huge boost when Embiid's out. But yeah, I think we can safely project Boban to play 10 to 15 minutes. So I think he's a decent value play there, 4.2K with some upside. Let's see, Zubac got in some foul trouble, only played 10 minutes. Again, both teams kind of want to run small ball. I just, maybe if Montrez gets some foul trouble, that's when, Zubac can get you there. I think he's going to go really low owned, but I just don't think I can pull the trigger on him on this 2-game slate. And then Ed Davis, obviously he played really, really well last time out in 25 minutes. Rolled his ankle, listed as questionable. So if he plays, I think he's a pretty solid value play here at 3.9. Again, he looked really good when he was out there. So yeah, but if he's out, if Dudley's out, then that's when I look to Jarrett Allen. That's when I look to Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, who I will bring up. Didn't even crack the rotation last time out. But if both those guys miss, I think he'd be asked to play some pretty decent minutes, and I like him a lot as a value play. Other than that, Greg Monroe didn't even crack the rotation. Only would consider him if Embiid's out. That's when I think they would kind of go center by committee, and Greg Monroe can feast in limited time. So I would consider him if Embiid's out. So yeah, I think that's going to do it for today's video, guys. If you have been enjoying the content, please like this video, subscribe. If you have any questions, you can leave it in the comment section down below. It's also important to follow me on Twitter. That will be in the description below. I'll give my thoughts when more news comes out. Obviously we're waiting on the big Embiid news. We're waiting on Ed Davis, and we're waiting on Jared Dudley. Three pretty big pieces for this 2-game slate. So really important to follow me on Twitter, guys. I will have it in the description below, and I'll be back for another video on Tuesday. So I will see you guys then.